First of all, extending the tax cuts will cost money. Second of all, even the
tax cuts. It's keeping the rates the same.
Okay,
it's not a tax cut.
It costs money. Okay,
it doesn't cost money. The money belongs to the people.
I mean, look,
so you want Republicans to raise taxes?
And well, look,
we did not run on that.
Hold on, guys. He's extending the tax cuts.
Tax rates.
He's also creating new tax cuts that cost money.
One of the big differences between conservatives and the left is the simple idea that your money belongs to you, right? That cash is much better off in your pocket than it is funding some government entity, some NGO, or even some foreign nation. Okay, but in this whole argument, the Democrats try to appear as if they're helping out the poor, right? The downtrodden, when as a matter of fact, all they're trying to do is buy votes with your dollars. However, now, after all of the waste, fraud, and abuse has been exposed in the federal government, they really come off as being out of touch. And that's exactly what we're going to see today being pointed out by JD Vance over here with the Democrats' messaging in the upcoming midterms. However, before we get to these clips, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on this video so you can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
It's very simple. Donald Trump's Republican Party wants very simple things for this country. We want you to be able to earn a good living in your community. We want you to be able to walk down a city street in broad daylight without getting mugged. We want you to be able to take your family out to a nice meal wherever you want to without the fear of violence from criminals, whether they're domestic criminals or international drug cartels. If you work hard every single day, you ought to take as much of your hard-earned pay home as possible. And if you want to raise your children in security and comfort, you ought to send them to a school that gives them a good education instead of an indoctrination. These are very simple things, ladies and gentlemen, and all we needed was better leadership in Washington to deliver it. Now, Representative Van Orden will tell you this, but if you didn't know, that it turned out that we didn't get a single Democrat vote for cutting taxes on tips, cutting taxes on overtime, or increasing the child tax credit. Not a single Democrat in the House or the Senate could actually deign to vote for giving you more of your hard-earned money. And we got to ask ourselves why that is. Because as much as I am proud of what we've accomplished, it would honestly be a little bit easier, wouldn't it, Derek, if the Democrats actually worked with us instead of fighting us every single step of the way. And you're going to see this. We're a little early for campaign season, but in a couple months or maybe about a year, you're going to start seeing television advertisements. And you're going to start seeing Democrats lying about what's in these working families tax cuts. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to say. They're going to tell you that this bill, which gives you more of your hard-earned money, that they opposed it, not because they want to raise your taxes, and they do, but because they're worried about your health care. They are so worried about your health care, in fact, that they want to give more and more of your health care to illegal immigrants. And that's exactly why they voted against this bill. I know we have this beautiful high school class back there. And I'll give you, just from a vice president to the high school seniors, I'll give you guys just a little bit of relationship advice from a man who's been happily married for 11 years. Find yourself somebody who loves you as much as national Democrats love giving health care benefits to illegal aliens. That's my advice for you. Because it is, as far as I can tell, it is, as far as I can tell, the reason why the National Democratic Party exists. Do you know that this bill makes tens of billions of dollars in investments in our rural health care infrastructure, which was falling apart under the last administration? This legislation guarantees that hardworking Americans are going to have access to their Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits. What this bill refuses to do, and what Republicans absolutely refuse to do, is to give your hard-earned benefits to people who don't have the legal right to be in this country to begin with. It is very simple. And if you want to protect the people's benefits, if you want to protect rural health care, if you want to make sure that whether you live in a big city or a small town, you have the ability to go and see a doctor, and that is exactly what we want to do, then the first thing you ought to be doing is making sure that the people who get federal health care benefits actually have the right to be in this country in the first place. That is the first and most important step. And that's what this legislation did. So don't believe the lies and don't believe the attacks. What we are doing with this legislation is giving you a tax cut and trying to rebuild the healthcare infrastructure of this country that got decimated under Joe Biden's leadership. But what we are also doing, in order to preserve the benefits that you paid into for your entire lives, is making sure those benefits only go to our fellow American citizens and not to people who ought to go back to their home country because they're here in this country illegally. It's very simple. And think about this. Think about the math, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot have these health care benefits if you allow tens of millions of people into this country who have no legal right to be here and give them those benefits. We were on the freight train to bankruptcy under Joe Biden's leadership because we had a Democratic Party that didn't care enough about this country to actually enforce our borders. And it's that simple. And so when I see the Democrats, I got to be honest with you, it makes me a little bit angry. When I see Democrats fighting against cutting your taxes and saying it's about health care, it's not about health care for you. It's about health care for illegal aliens. And we happen to believe in a different principle. You ought to keep more of your hard-earned money. That if you work overtime, you ought to be rewarded for it. And that when you pay into the federal system, you receive those benefits and not anybody who didn't pay into them to begin with.
That pretty much sums it up, right? As I've been saying for a long time now, it's the illegal immigrant that is the new mascot of the Democrat Party. They value them above anyone else because remember, they were supposed to be the new voter base, right? They're supposed to be the new population in America that was going to ensure the Democrats maintained control and power in perpetuity. But now, of course, we're deporting them out of our country and kicking them off all of our Social Security and Medicare rolls. But as JD Vance was pointing out, right, the big beautiful bill, which by the way, there's a bunch of stuff in it I don't like. I think it had way too much spending, but what was the good stuff? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, right? Allowing you to keep more of your money, the money you work awfully hard for, right? Allowed to be kept in your pocket. But of course, to the Democrats, they can't have that, okay? But as JD Vance also says, they're going to make this whole thing about Medicare. Right? About you being able to keep your health insurance, right? When as a matter of fact, all that was happening was instituting a little work requirement for people who were physically able. And of course, also kicking off the illegal immigrants, right? That was it. That was the big change. But you'd think it was the end of the world and that Republicans were the worst people ever for simply mandating a little accountability in government spending on this particular issue. And as I said at the very beginning, right? What's the big difference between conservatives and the left? The simple idea that your money belongs to you, right? The fruits of your labor should be in your pocket and not in somebody else's, because you know exactly what you need a lot more than some government entity or agency. So, of course, around election time, we already know what the attacks are going to be. One, of course, is going to be Medicaid, but the other one, of course, is going to be Donald Trump is a dictator. He's awful. He's bankrupting the country, even though we just had some really good GDP numbers out today, where once again, we've blown through expectations and we have an increase in our numbers. I believe it was 3.3 up above the 3% that was being projected. But of course, none of that really matters to the Democrats because it doesn't have anything to do with providing mass amnesty to illegals or giving them free stuff from our tax-paying citizens. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Really good news. There's a Labor Day sale going on at my online t-shirt store. So if you've been waiting to buy something, go ahead and check out these wonderful designs about patriotism and America. And you can also support the channel at the same time. So enjoy yourselves and find something you like today. And don't forget, all of these designs are 100% mother approved.